Good afternoon and welcome to the Patriotic Dragon Radio program, the show to bring open, honest, thoughtful conversation back. The opinions on the program are not necessarily those of the guest, WYYZ, or the sponsor. This month's sponsor is Solar Tan and Victor's Nails. Come by and see Tony on the North Main Street location or their Marble Hill location on Highway 53 East. Our guest this week is Andy Thompson, and our panelist this week is Bart Conley. Bart, thanks for being back on.
Not a problem.
Yeah. And Andy, thank you for being on with us.
My pleasure, believe me.
Great. I wanted to just kind of start off, Andy. I really appreciate you being on with this being Severe Weather Awareness Month.
Right.
And it's here we are taping on Thursday here at beautiful Rocco's Pub and Grill on 515 with an inch of fresh powder. We're not on the parking lot, but on all the grassy areas and stuff. So I don't know that it could be any more timely to have you on with us.
Well, exactly. I thought we were going to talk mostly about thunderstorms and tornadoes, but of course we had thunder with snow this morning.
That's it,
so
and we'll probably have
you
tornadoes.
never know, do we?
Yeah, we'll have tornadoes next week.
There you go. It'll be prime time for tornadoes next week.
Yeah. Well, I'd like for you to, if you would, just so our audience can get a little bit of background on you. I know that you worked with the American Red Cross here and in this North Georgia region for about 16 years.
Correct.
And then you've been with a local company here, Global Restorations, as a business development officer for the last 5 years or so. And
correct.
Congratulations on your 5-year anniversary.
Well, thanks. That's next week. Yeah, I'm really real tickled. Yeah, I went to work for the American Red Cross, the Northeast Georgia chapter, which is based in Gainesville, or was based in Gainesville at the time, and covered 13 counties. So my main responsibility was raising funds so that we could help people, because Red Cross is not a government agency, much to a lot of people's surprise, and they receive no federal, state, or local tax money at all. So all the money that Red Cross uses is through the generosity of the American people. So that was my main job, but it really morphed into working with disaster aid. Red Cross's kind of bread and butter disaster response is for house fires. There's basically 70,000 house fires a year in the United States in a regular year. So that's what Red Cross does, is provide food, shelter, and clothing for folks that have experienced a house fire. Now, not commercial fires, unless it's a commercial apartment building or condominium, but just for people that have been displaced from their homes. And nationwide, it goes on a scale. A family of 2 or 3 or 4, there's a scale they get. So regardless whether they're in California, New York, or here in Georgia, they get the same amount of money per person. So, and then they can get referrals to other, like here in Pickens County, we will always refer people to either Good Samaritan for health care issues, and of course the thrift store we could give them vouchers, and then they wouldn't even be charged at the thrift store, and to kind of recoup food, clothes, furniture items, bedding, mattresses, that type of stuff that everybody needs. So.
Well, that's interesting, and I didn't realize that you were doing the fundraising portion on that, which that had to be a full-time and a part-time job.
Yeah, it sure was. And the biggest hurdle was most people think that Red Cross is an affiliate of the federal government, and it's not. And I've had people argue with me for years. Oddly enough, Red Cross and the Boy Scouts of America are the only 2 nonprofits in the country that are chartered by the U.S. Congress. So that adds to a little bit of the confusion also. So Congress chartered Red Cross through Clara Barton, the founder, to provide aid to the American people in times of disaster. And of course, over the years, that's evolved with FEMA taking a bigger role after Katrina. So things have kind of changed a little bit then. So in a lot of areas, Red Cross now, in a major disaster, is charged with mostly providing shelter. So people can apply to FEMA for financial assistance and also assistance with getting their houses fixed or repaired or new homes based on, of course, they have to qualify for loans. That's the bad part. So, and any aid that you receive from Red Cross is a gift. It's not a loan of any sort. So, one of the things that's kind of unique in the fact is you're set on a particular scale if you have a house fire. But if you're in a disaster like a tornado or a major flood, then the more money comes in, may qualify you for more money than, say, a house fire victim would get. So that's kind of hard to explain sometimes when if your house is destroyed by a tornado, you may get more financial resources than if your house burns. But it's based on really on the amount of money that the Red Cross has to give out. So it's suffered. Red Cross financial resources is episodic driven. The less number of major storms and fires and floods and tornadoes, the amount of money donated tends to drop. So then when something big does happen, the coffers are pretty thin, and they have to wait almost till after the fact for money to start coming in. So it's pretty unusual.
Yeah, that is. I didn't realize it was set up that way. So, and I know here we were unfortunate several years ago and all that we had the tornadoes sweep through somewhat back to back. And my daughter was just happened to be in Tuscaloosa, Alabama at university, so saw that devastation there, and the community come together, and the Red Cross, they were there. It seemed like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 months.
3 months,
I mean,
exactly.
With what I'd call like the Meals on Wheels and that type of thing. Say for North Georgia, when that same event occurred here, how did the American Red Cross react, and how does that coordination with local entities like our Rodney Buckingham, the guys with Pickens County, that time, how do we integrate that support?
Well, anytime we have some major event coming, even like a potential snowstorm or something, Red Cross always has a seat at the EOC, Emergency Operations Center, and sometimes I wore more than one hat at those events, but so we are a part of it. Unfortunately, the last set of tornadoes that we had come through here, the next day or the same afternoon of the tornadoes in Tuscaloosa, what happened was a lot of the major resources in Georgia got sent to Alabama. So, and fortunately for here, I had a great group of volunteers that helped out, but we had to rely really a lot on the Sheriff's Department for delivering meals because Red Cross resources were stretched so thin. And it was a bitter pill for me to have to swallow because I was the only paid Red Cross person for 8 counties at that time, and we only have a finite number of volunteers. So, but everything worked out fine. The Sheriff's Department was wonderful in their response and helping deliver meals and that type of thing. So it's a real coordinated effort. If you've never been a part of a large-scale disaster, and I mean a really large one, like Katrina or a really major tornado, it's pretty interesting to see all the different facets that have to come together and work. And a lot of times, there's a lot of testosterone sometimes in some of these meetings. So, and like we saw at Katrina, one of the very first problems is who's in charge, who's actually in charge of the response. And in our county, Rodney Buckingham, Bob Howard, they are the EMA Emergency Management Agency directors for Pickens County. Then you go up the ladder to GEMA, Georgia Emergency Management, and then FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management. But we learned some really valuable lessons at Katrina. Number one, really the U.S. military is the only real entity that has the equipment, the expertise, the manpower, the air power, and the set of command controls to actually respond to a large-scale disaster. the ability to fly water into people in New Orleans at certain places. Red Cross, Salvation Army, the city of New Orleans, state of Louisiana, they did not have helicopters and the deuce and a half trucks that would take to go through the water to get to places. And as everybody well remembers, it was tough getting up to speed in order to get everything done. And a lot of that was because who's in charge? Was it the mayor? Was it the governor? Was it the president? Or who was really in charge? And so a lot of things have changed for the better since then. And like anything, of course, that's our nation's single largest natural disaster in the history of our country. So, out of bad things, sometimes good things come. So I think things are much better now than they used to be. So.
Sure. Well, and just kind of touch on the funding part of it, since you were doing a lot of that. If regular citizens wanted to become, which I've got certain things that I donate to, and one of them that I'm proud to be a part of is NPR. The National Public Radio. You get different opinions on it. It's a different thing. I like All Things Considered. It's one of my favorite programs I always listen to.
Mine too.
But being a member of NPR, I see the results of it because when they have fundraising and all that type of thing. If a regular citizen or a business wanted to become a partner or a continuing type contributor to American Red Cross, is that something that could be done, and how do they go about it?
Very easily, actually. We used to have the Northeast Georgia chapter, and it's consolidating with the East Georgia chapter. So now there are 25 counties that comprise one chapter, and it's based out of Athens now instead of Gainesville. There is, as the economy took a dip after 06 and then 07 and 8 and 9, Red Cross really took a huge hit. And so at one time, when Katrina hit, we had 13 paid employees. Now there are only 3. So not making an excuse, but the simple fact is that they're trying to do more with less, and sometimes it doesn't work too good. So they do need volunteers, and they can call the American Red Cross in Athens. There's a toll-free number, and I'm sorry I don't have it. And the state Red Cross headquarters is in Atlanta, of course, on Monroe Drive. So that's not the blood center, that's the disaster side. So blood center is entirely different.
Andy, you're talking about volunteers, and I volunteer with several groups here in Pickens County, which is you show up and someone's going to show you what to do or ask you if you can do this or that. Volunteering with the Red Cross, since you are going out to where there are disasters, is there training available for volunteers just coming in that don't know?
Oh, absolutely. That was a very quick story. When Katrina happened, or when 9/11 happened, I was at the headquarters in Gainesville, and a lady I'd known that's my hometown. I'd known for forever, ever since I was born. She came up to me and wanted to volunteer. Well, the problem was she wasn't trained for anything, and we were inundated with people. People have great intentions. They don't think about applying to be a volunteer before something happens. They want to come in after the fact. And the problem is there's limited amounts of things that they can do because everybody that can train them is busy doing their work. And she looked at me and she said, "Well, y'all should have been better prepared." And I said, "Well, you're probably right." And she said, "Well, you need to get these people trained." I said, "Well, Ms. Jones, you should have come by 2 weeks ago, and then maybe we would have been better prepared." So it is kind of chicken or the egg sometimes, but yes, there's ample training. Some of it can be done online now, but they're classes held all over North Georgia for different aspects. So and you can kind of pick and choose what
if you don't want to get up in the middle of the night and respond to a house fire, then you can do other things, from driving the ERVs, the emergency response vehicles that look like an ambulance, but we feed meals out of the side. That's a particular skill that you take training for. And so, it really makes a difference, Bart. You're right that you have to be trained, and a lot of that cannot be done on the fly, on OJT, on the job training. It just doesn't work that good. So,
and they just call the office in Athens to
yes,
find out what the training is, or look on the computer.
Right, on the computer is really the best. It can still go Northeast Georgia or North Georgia chapter of the American Red Cross, or they can just type in American Red Cross in general, and it'll give you where your location is, how to get best in touch with them.
Okay, and we said there's 25 counties in the North region now. Kind of give us a geography of how far south that goes, and kind of, I know obviously we don't go into the Tennessee or North Carolina area.
Right.
So what counties as far as southbound? Are we the southernmost?
No, well, we're actually the westernmost county. So if you take a line, it goes, Cherokee County comes out of the metro area. So we're the southern and the westernmost point. So from here all the way up to the North Carolina line, so it goes Pickens, Gilmer, Fannin, Towns, Union, Fannin, Towns, Union, Rayburn, all the way over that way to include Gainesville, over to Athens, and it goes as far southeast as Greene County, which is Greensboro, Georgia, and then the chapter out of Augusta picks up from there and carries over. So, 25 counties, so it's a big area.
Yeah, so Murray, Whitfield, those counties, northwest Georgia, where are they based out of the metro?
They come out of Dalton, Georgia, and they come as far south as Bartow County is the kind of demarcation line from there. Then they go over to the Alabama state line that way. Yeah. So, and some of the very north, like Dade and Walker, may actually come out of Chattanooga. They were at one time, and I'm not sure. Sometimes they kind of flip-flop back and forth depending on because they're pretty isolated over that way. So
yeah, and Walker County in the past few years has had some pretty rough, especially with the flooding
right
there.
Exactly.
They've had a tremendous amount of it, and I know that a lot of the Life Flight, all that's based out of Erlanger, and that covers all that area. It doesn't come toward the Atlanta area. So.
Correct. So, okay. And then you'll remember the infamous Brent Marsh, the crematorium case over that way. I was
stack them deep. No, I was kidding.
Yep, I was fortunate enough unfortunate enough to have to go to that serving meals. That was an extraordinary experience. So to the workers. So.
I was the same thing. Fortunate or unfortunate. In my day job, I actually took over South Louisiana directly after Katrina.
Oh, wow.
And I was actually there taking it, I'd taken it over about a month before, but my first trip was 2 weeks after Katrina. And and I planned on staying in Metairie, and, I wound up staying in Mississippi.
Right.
And North Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Did the drive, and that's when I decided to buy myself an 80-gallon fuel cell for the back of my truck, so that way I didn't have gas with sand in it.
I understand.
So, but growing up and being originally from South Florida, Broward and Dade County, hurricanes are a thing of a way of living.
That's right, way of life, isn't it?
Yeah. But as far as donations, other than actual money being donated or volunteer time, say for our corporate listeners, we've got some in North Cherokee County, that type thing. What other goods or materials or type things would be of benefit to the American Red Cross for our region?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Will. They don't take things very much. One of the first things that people want to do is bring clothes. And now Salvation Army has a great facility in Gainesville, also an organization called the Potter's House. They have the facility, the manpower to sort through clothes, size, sort them, and all that kind of stuff, and then discard the things that need to be. So Red Cross really, unless usually bottled water is the only type of actual commodity that they may ask for, because most of the time the feeding and all are going to come out of a one large like warehouse facility that we have down at Fort Gillem, and so we have a lot of the MREs like the military uses and that type of thing, and we have what we call comfort kits, and they are kits that are put together. They're ethnically driven for personal care products and that type of thing, man and female, and also for children, that they give people that have experienced the loss of their home for whatever reason. And then they have cleanup kits too, and these are large boxes with mop and broom handles with detachable heads, and then there's buckets with 2 or 3 different kinds of cleanup things, and then a hard bristle brush to go with it. So all that stuff is already prepackaged and put together. That's easily stackable and shippable, and all that goes out. Plus, a couple of the large big box stores, Walmart in particular, has tractor trailers, I should say, already stacked and ready to go with equipment from flashlight batteries to flashlights to sleeping bags to rakes to yard rakes, all kind of things that you might need. And in 1998 in northern Hall County, when we had a really severe tornado that killed 12 people, we had 3 trailers dropped off by Walmart, and then they handed us a bill of lading, so we knew exactly what was in each trailer. They're already pre-packed, pre-ready to go, and all they had to do was to deliver them. And what a godsend that is. Home Depot's excellent about that type of thing too. In 2001, when we had the tornado in Tate, they brought and dropped off, because I signed the receipt for $38,000 worth of equipment, from all the way from duct tape and the orange 5-gallon buckets up. They gave away, I think we gave away 20 or 25 brand new chainsaws with oil and gas tanks, and the really touching part was the seemingly the people with the poorest amount of resources got these, and they kept saying, well, when do we need to bring them back? They didn't fully understand that these were gifts from Home Depot, not loans. And it's pretty, it really restores your faith in humanity, and God, we need it sometimes nowadays. But to see big corporations really reach out and touch people like that, it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and I know a lot of those corporate partners don't get the accolades that they probably should.
Exactly.
And that's good. They give back to the community.
And at that time, we didn't even have a Home Depot here in Jasper. It was in the works to build one, but all this came out of the corporate office through the Canton store. Okay. So they brought tarps, just everything that you could think you would need in trying to rebuild or put together or save your house.
Right. That's good. Yeah. And now that we're into the season, and March is Severe Weather Awareness Month, what do citizens need to, and I know there's lists online, but there are a lot of our listeners that are seniors and that type of thing, maybe don't have access to the internet, that type of thing. Just basic things that they need to have at home in an easily accessible place for that when things are happening. Can you kind of run through those things? Sure.
To me, the really quick best answer is, number one, if we're expecting storms, tornado watches, know the difference between a watch and a warning. Watch is when a large area has the possibility of storms. A warning is when an actual either thunderstorm or tornado, whichever the warning is, has actually been cited for your area. So it's for a specific, usually a small area, geographical area, and for a specific given amount of time. And so always go to the lowest point in your house. One thing that we have in Pickens County that most counties do not have is we have a safe shelter to go to. It's in the basement of the Pickens County Administration Building. It's not always open, but if we have storms coming, that the county will open them up. The Code Red system will announce whether the pre-storm shelter is open or not. So it gives you a place to go that's safe, particularly if you live in a mobile home or an area that you have no lower floor or an enclosed place where there's no windows. If you get kind of caught where you can't get out, the bathtub in a bathroom is always a good place to put cover over you. There's a countless number of people have been saved because they're halfway enclosed anyway, and they have something substantial around them. But a lower floor or basement, if you have it, and it's really important to have some sort of kit for the home. First aid kit's fine, but to have medicine. One of the biggest things that we faced is when we go to people's homes that have been lost for whatever reason, is they lose their medicine, they lose their shoes. One of the first things I always do, my wife makes fun of me sometimes, is I always put sneakers on if there's going to be a storm, because I can't tell you how many pairs of shoes I've gone to buy because people have come out barefooted because they were caught in their bedclothes. So shoes, clothes, medicine. If you're like me and you have you've got to have medicine like for diabetes or for things like that, then it's nice to have medicine where you can pick it up and take it with you. Those basic things like that can really save a lot of trouble. And we also learned from Katrina that if you at your house can survive for 2 days without assistance, then you got a great chance of people getting to you, the 911 folks. The first responders are great, but they can only get to so many people so fast, and they can get overwhelmed very quickly in a large-scale disaster. So just think about it. If most of the people in New Orleans could have maintained at their location for 2 or 3 days with water and food, I know they didn't have air conditioning, but if they could have just had enough water to drink, then there would have been a lot less misery than there was. So some food, but water and medicine to last you for 2 days, because then you got a good chance of the first responders being able to get to you if you really need assistance. So I know that's a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, and I mean that's right. What I was looking at, and I know from same thing from South Florida and that situation there is we would always recommend people that, having small bottles of water like you take to go for a walk in the afternoon is fine, but having 4 gallons of water that you pick up from your local Walmart store and all that sits in a cabinet, and water doesn't go bad. Keep it out of the sun,
right,
and put it there. But having those gallons and really is easier to travel with if you have to move. And it's easier as far as consumption, that type of thing.
And a good rule of thumb is if you can have 1 gallon of water per person per day, and then to have a couple, 3 extra gallons of water to flush a toilet with. So those gives somebody an idea of how much water. You think, well, gosh, if I got 3 kids and a wife and a husband, that's 5 people. That's 10 or 15 gallons of water, and I know that's a lot, but think about it. That's not really that much, because you can rotate it in and out as you use it. Because most all of us buy a bottle of water anyway. So, but yeah, you may. It's like buying insurance for your car or house. You may never use it, but you can't afford to be without it. So,
yeah, and we'd started a program there in South Florida because of the water table and flood type things that we actually in Home Depot was one of the companies to start providing it there on the coastal areas. If you think about it from a standpoint for the listeners out there, if you go to Home Depot, you can get a 5-gallon Homer bucket, and they actually sell the lids that have a neoprene gasket seal on them. Mm-hmm. You take that, it's sterile. You can take your Clorox and water mix, and you can sterilize those things. And 3 or 4 5-gallon buckets with the airtight lid snapped down on it. They stack on top of each other, and you can have 25 gallons of potable water. And if you need to boil it in order to have it for food and that type of thing, you can do it. It doesn't take up much space, and it's a good way to do it.
Exactly, and it's invaluable if you need it.
Yeah, and those same, for the listeners, those same buckets, those 5-gallon buckets that seal are great for MREs if you don't make sure you got water because they're really salty. But the MREs and even the ramen noodles and things like that have an extended shelf life, put those in that orange 5-gallon bucket, label it that it's food, and your first aid, you can do it the same way.
Absolutely.
Snap the lid on it and put it in your garage or in that lower part of the house. That way it's stored out of the way, but it's where you're going to be should calamity happen.
Sure.
They're
Better
good,
safe than sorry.
Yeah, and there's good common sense ways of doing it. And yeah, you can go online and you can buy a tremendous amount of different kits and survival type things and all that. And some of those are fine, and they make them in different sizes. But you probably have extras of everything that you really do need at your home today, especially if it's a large family and been married as long as my wife and I have. We've got multiples of everything.
Exactly.
So take one extra of each thing, a pair of scissors, some string, that type of thing, and put it into one place so your family. And the other thing that, if you could touch on, is I think all families need to have a exit point and a meeting point.
Absolutely.
Outside of their home and that type of thing, which we do that for a lot of businesses, have a plan. But can you kind of touch on that part of that?
Absolutely. That's a great point you made, Will, because say you do have a fire tonight at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, not everybody's going out the same door probably. So when the fire department rolls up, it's what a relief to them to know that everybody's out and accounted for. Because if they're not accounted for, then what they're going to do is risk their life to go in to try to find somebody. And unfortunately, I've been on 2 separate occasions when a fireman lost their life looking for somebody when there was nobody left in the building. And it's a tragic situation, but these men and women are brave, and they will go to the last degree trying to save somebody. But if it's not necessary, then saving property is one thing. Saving a life is something different. So you're right. To have a designated area, and even small children can learn to do this, to go next door to Ms. Jones' house, or whether it's a tree across the street or whatever it is, to have that area to go to. And it's just like when they have fire drills in school or a tornado drill. They have, a fire drill. When they leave the building, they know exactly where their classroom's supposed to go. Same thing for the house. And it's so easy to have a fire drill at home. We don't usually think about it, but it's easy, and you can make it fun for kids. But it's a serious thing, and the more they do it, the more it's just like stop, drop, and roll, that they become accustomed. It catches in their mind, and they'll remember it. And the reason we teach it at schools so much is because they'll take it home to parents. If the kids are involved in it and it's important to them, then the parents pick up on it. So.
Yeah, and is that something along that we were talking about schools, as far as the American Red Cross, and do we have a program where we actually go to, say, Hill City, Pickens Elementary, Jasper Elementary, that type of thing, and do that during the school year? Or
we used to do that all the time, and I'm just not. I've been away now for almost 5 years, so I'm not sure exactly what type program they do have. But I would certainly be glad to entertain doing that some, even through our work at Global, because although we restore places that have had a fire or a storm or whatever, but our first main part is people's safety too. So, you could contact Rodney at the EMA office here at the county, and he could get in touch with me, and we could work out something like that. I'd be glad to do something like that. So that's fun too.
Okay. And just to kind of tie that in for what we were talking about earlier, that safe zone or safe facility is at the administrative building, which is the old Roper Hospital, and it is around the backside. So if you're going around to what used to be the emergency room side of the building, go down that right-hand side around the back, and it is the lower level across from the emergency management building.
Correct.
And that's on South Church Street there.
1266 South Church Street.
All right. Yeah. As you've said that more than once.
I sure have.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then you mentioned Global Restorations, which is the company that you're the business development officer for. Kind of tell us a little bit about, because I know the company's fairly new in comparison to some other companies that are out there that are national.
Right.
Give us a little background about the company, the ownership and mission statement that y'all do have.
We're located in 3 states: Ohio, Indiana, and Georgia. Our company is solely owned by Jonathan Schooler. He lives in Canton, so Jasper is the real headquarters for the company. We have about 18 full-time employees here. It's a restoration/construction company. So unlike some of the big name brands across the country, we'll come in and do the mitigation part of sewage backup or fire, flood, mold, any of that. Then what we do, we go the next step, and we also do the rebuild part of it. So if you have a flood, we got a call this morning from a sewage backup. So it ruined some drywall and, of course, carpeting and that type of stuff. So not only do we get the mess cleaned up, then we can come back in and put down new carpet, paint, do all the things necessary to put it back to pre-loss condition. So a lot of our business comes through local insurance agents. A lot comes word of mouth or previous customers. And so that kind of separates us from a lot of the just strictly mitigation companies. So
now, as far as with a lot of older homes in our area, that type of thing, we always have the fear in commercial buildings, which I know like the depot here in town is in question because of asbestos and
Correct.
things like that. What do y'all handle as far as the depth of mitigation that y'all are set up to do?
We really do it all. Asbestos is a real concern. You mentioned the Jasper Depot. People had thought about putting a new roof on it and just putting it over the existing roof. Well, the problem with the asbestos is, left alone, it's not harmful. But once you disturb it, like drive a nail through it, then all those particles start getting up in the air. So any kind of asbestos that's going to be tampered with has to be taken out by a company that is certified to do that. And they have Tyvek suits, respirators, all that stuff. Then everything once put in has got to be disposed of properly. So it's a big deal. And we don't do it ourselves, but one of our subcontractor companies does do that. So just like when the First Baptist Church here in Jasper flooded this time last year, one of the unique things about them was they had the organ and all the pipes that are along the wall. All that had to be taken out and refurbished and cleaned. And there's only 2 or 3 companies really in the state or the southeast that does that type of work. So you can imagine it's not inexpensive either. But in order to have it all put back, because I didn't realize the pipes are made out of zinc, and they dent very easily. And I guess to get a truer sound, Matt could probably tell us more about that. But so there's a lot of unique things that you run across that you don't typically think about in our kind of work. So it's not just plugging a hole or
just mopping it up,
or patching a roof or something. Yeah. So it can get pretty extensive. So,
and you were talking about the certifications, and we hear the horror stories from Katrina and from every other natural disaster that has occurred. And we always tell people, don't hire 2 guys in a truck, especially for in a Ford truck, but 2 guys in a truck with some blue tarps in the back.
Right.
Talk about the requirements or certification that should be carried by a contractor that you're going to let work on your property, and what Global
right.
does.
Well, thanks, Will, because we really face this And they're really storm chasers. They will pack up and go from one state to the next following storms. And one thing about our company, and a lot of companies too, not just ours, but they'll show up in a lettered truck. The guys will have a uniform on. It may just be a cap and a shirt with our company on it. They'll have business cards with all our information on there, and we're members of the Better Business Bureau. We're members of the Chamber of Commerce. There are a lot of ways that if you want to do some checking to find out, and it never hurts to call your insurance agent either. They may not recommend us, but they may not recommend anybody, but they'll give you 2 or 3 names of places that they know are reputable, and that if something does go wrong, that you have some recourse about. It's just not somebody that wants all your money up front and then they come back and guess what, they're gone. So hadn't done any work. Yeah, Bart.
Andy, your company, Global, has a program they put on that is open to the public.
Correct.
And if you could expound upon that right now and just give us some more information. I know I went to it last year. It was very educational, but that way you can start to talk about what's coming up this year.
Great. Well, thanks, Bart. Appreciate you mentioning that. October is National Fire Prevention Month nationwide. And as we start leaving the warm fall and heading into the cooler temperatures, as people start cranking up their furnaces for the first time, a lot of people tend to forget to get their filters changed and that type of thing. So what we do in conjunction with the Pickens County Fire Department, and next year we're going to include Jasper Fire Department too, we have a building that we built specifically, 3-sided building. One side we have, both sides are furnished, pretty identically furnished. One side we set fire to, or the fire department sets fire to, and it doesn't have a sprinkler system. And it shows really how quickly, and they start timing within 3 to 4 minutes, how a room can be completely engulfed just from the spark of one match. The other room next door to it does have a sprinkler system in it. So in 3 minutes, usually the fire is, at least if it's not completely out, it's suppressed. And really what sprinkler systems are put in businesses for are really not to put fires out, but to buy you time to get out. So Chief Curtis Clark, our fire marshal for the Pickens County, is the one that actually conducts the program. Insurance agents, insurance adjusters can get continuing ed credit for it. We had a crowd of almost 100 people there last year and hoping to have more. And we'd hope to have the radio program there maybe next year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is that something that, say, you have on your company website, or?
We do.
Because I'm just thinking that would be something I definitely would like to link to off the program. Because if no one, and hope you never go through a home fire, but if you haven't seen how quickly items in a house can go up, and that, like I say, that 3 to 4 minutes, and at the onset of it, you're in the 4 minute before you realize with the smoke and the fumes, or your dog
Absolutely.
and your dog's barking, your kids start screaming. The first 3 minutes has already elapsed before you're aware of it.
Right.
So absolutely, we definitely want to participate and be there for that. And
yeah, it's a fun event. We have nice food and for everybody, and but it does have a serious theme to it. Sure. And we have giveaway prizes and that type of thing. And but it really is. It's very pertinent for everybody, but because it does show you how it's frightening how quick fire spreads. Mm-hmm. And we just have regular furniture that we put in there. We usually get it from the thrift store, donated from them. So we have each room almost identically decorated, and TV or computer screen. And I mention computers because of the batteries in computers and your cell phones. Do never place them on your bed or cloth material as they're recharging. But because one of the gentlemen that works for our company, father lost his house last fall because he was recharging his computer, laid it on his bed, walked away. next thing you know, the house is on fire. So,
for our listeners who have children and grandchildren who come over, and somewhat like my daughter and her friends, take the iPad off the bed and
Correct.
put it on a hard surface when you're charging it. I know so many of our young people use their cell phones for everything they do, from the alarm clock they get up to that last text message to their friends or whatever at night. The dresser or the nightstand has a reason. That's where those kind of things
absolutely,
should be
it makes a huge difference, and
Yeah.
it's something so. And a lot of times we find fires are caused by such innocuous things that you would never dream. Well, I can't believe this caused the problem. Well, next thing you know, it's too late. So,
Right.
And let me go back, one more question about the demonstration.
Sure.
Is the other thing I liked about it was the smoke room, I'll call it. Where
Yes.
you smoked the room out, and then people got dressed to go in and see how, it was a small room, but how tough it is really to get it clean. You know, what you can do to clean a room, even if just with the smoke damage.
it really, and a lot also to dovetail with that too, Bart, is the greatest killer in fires is smoke, not fire itself. Smoke inhalation is what really kills people. They may burn, but usually they're already dead before the fire gets to them. But yeah, we have a small little one-room house built that we can fill it with non-toxic smoke. It's kind of fake smoke, if you will, and then we'll put 2 or 3 people into our Tyvek suits, the cleanup suits, and let them go in and see how difficult it is to see, number one, in a room full of smoke, and then even after the smoke has been pulled out, is how difficult it is to clean that stuff up. We had a fire just recently here in Pickens County where the fire was in the garage, and they had an apartment above the garage, but they had the same air conditioning unit to cover the garage, apartment, and the house. Well, what happened was the air conditioning unit sucked in all that smoke from the garage into the main house. So the damage caused to the house was much greater than the damage to the garage apartment through smoke. And of course it permeates everything. You know, just like it'll permeate a piece of pork or turkey or chicken, it'll permeate the everything in your, you know, the furniture, the walls, the curtains, anything that's cloth, of course it will, but even wood things. So all that can be cleaned. Some of it can't be, but usually most things can be cleaned, but it takes special process, special equipment, special everything to do it. And the main thing is to get that smoke out of there to start with, and to get the humidity out or the moisture out. So we put in large industrial dehumidifiers and fans to keep the air circulating, and then the dehumidifiers will pull the moisture out of the air. So.
Okay. And that's great information, and obviously in a situation like we were talking about before, if a household can have that 2 to 3 days of basic supplies to get by until emergency services can get to them. We're fortunate in the county that our 911 enhancement, we don't have many roads that aren't paved,
Right.
and that fire trucks and EMS don't have access to now, but there are still areas that are that way. So, and just another word with this time of the year, you know, make sure you know your neighbors. If you've got an elderly couple, I know there's a lot of roads in this county that there's a family or an elderly couple that live at the end of a road at a home place, that type thing. If you're younger and you live there, if you haven't met, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, stop by, introduce yourself, get to know them, let them know where you're at, phone numbers, that type thing. And after a storm, stop by and check on them just to make sure, even if there's no visible damage, and do those type things.
Yeah, it really is. It's very heartwarming. But I live in Tate, and We even know everybody's dog's name, it seems like, in Tate. Sometimes, because everybody's got one, at least one. So, but yeah, it makes a big difference when people start looking out for each other again, like it used to be years ago. But, you know, everybody's life is fast-paced, and we're so digitally ingrained now with cell phones and texting and that type of thing. But being able to knock on the door and check on your neighbors or have somebody check on you is very comforting. It really is.
Yeah, something we did, same thing growing up and stuff in Florida. And for those parents that do listen, or those grandparents, take your grandchild. You want to teach them something. Take that second, third, fourth grader, walk your street with their notebook pad and write down your neighbor's name, their phone number, and how many people live in that house. And let your child get to know them, and those people get to know your children. Then take that list and put it on the side of the refrigerator.
It's a great idea.
And it's a simple thing. It teaches young people what's important, which is neighborhood and consciousness of who's around you. So, Andy, I want to thank you again for being on. A wealth of information. And
my pleasure, believe me.
Yeah. And we definitely want to, now we've got it marked down, we want to make sure you're back early in October, and we will talk about fire prevention month,
absolutely,
smoke detectors, all those important things for that time of the year.
That sounds great. We'd love to do that.
All right.
And I don't know if you mentioned Code Red, which is the kind of I forget how to. I'm signed up for it, but I forget how I did it. Do you remember the procedure someone can go through to get onto Code Red?
No, I don't.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Would they call over to Rodney?
Yeah, you can call just the switchboard at the county. I know you can do that. You can go to nopickens.com also and get a link through from there, from Mary's website to hook into it also. I know that. Yeah. That's the people with computers, that's probably the quickest, easiest way to do it.
It is a good service for Code Red. Pickens County, the home phone number, I'm just getting in here over one of these phones, is 706-253-8809. And that, Code Red is a good system for this county. I mean, I've gotten several calls warning me of thunderstorms in the area, and they come through.
Yeah, and it's geared. You're right, Bart. It's geared toward the part of the. So if it's coming through the very southern tip of the county, I may get a Code Red in Tate, but you may not on the west end of the county, and vice versa. So that's what makes it really so good. Is it's geared toward your particular end of the county or your part of the county.
And then I want one more question. I want to jump way back to when you were talking about volunteers for the Red Cross. Since it does cover 25 counties, say I want to volunteer and get trained to drive the truck, to deliver food. Would I be called if there was something going on in Athens, if they needed people, and be expected to go, or if possible, or
right? Yeah. What they do is once you're in the system, and then they keep track of all the things that you're qualified to do. And the training is really up to you. You can take as many courses as you want or as few. But what they'll do is when there's any large-scale disaster nationwide, they will send this out, and you'll get an email blast. If you're interested in going, then all you've got to do is contact them. If you're not interested, you just don't have to do anything. Okay. So you're never required to go to one a year or one every 3 years or anything like that. But once it gets in your blood of going, it really is. It's what a great feeling to help people that really need your help and that are really proud to get a bottle of water or a ham sandwich. I mean, it really does restore faith in your fellow man and your country and all the things that we all like and stand for. And the fact that's really what it was based on, what it was founded for, and what it continues to do after 128 years. So, but thanks.
All right. Well, again, Andy, thank you for being on. Bart, thank you for being on with us. And this is wrapping up this week's Patriotic Dragon radio program. Some programs we've got coming up next week. We will have James Kirkpatrick who's running for the 9th Congressional District. James will be on with us to discuss his run for that office. And then the week of the 25th, we will have the seated Congressman Doug Collins will be on with us that program, and we'll have, for both those gentlemen, we'll be recording the show at Rocco's Pub and Grill here on Highway 515. Come out for a day like today for a bowl of chili and then some libation, and get a chance to talk to your existing congressman or your future congressman, and enjoy the program. Again, the sponsor this month is Solar Tan and Victor's Nails on North Main Street. Go by and see Tony and Helen at the Main Street location or at their Marble Hill location. And y'all have a good Saturday, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
And just to finish off the show this afternoon, I want to make sure that everybody is aware that the Pickens County Republican Convention, the county convention, is at the end of March. On the 18th, it will be at the Pickens County Community Center. So if you are a Pickens County member of the Republican Party and as a registered Republican, you are entitled to come to it. Please try and get there between 8 and 9, because by convention rules, we have to close the doors. And if you're not there on time and registered, then you're not allowed to come in and participate in the convention. And then also want to mention our local Pickens County GOP has a scholarship for a graduating senior at Pickens High School. Please see Miss Heather Whitfield, the counselors there at the high school, for information on that scholarship that is available for all graduating 2016 seniors. So have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the Patriotic Dragon next week. Thank you.